Kuroda is a pathetic corporate slave with a bleak and depressing life. However, everything changes when a beautiful fox goddess moves into his apartment and will do anything to take care of him. This story starts with Kuroda counting down the minutes until he can leave work. When the time finally comes, a coworker asks him to help with even more jobs, and his lack of balls makes him agree. As he continues working, a dark fog representing his miserable life thickens, but it's only visible to 3 fox goddesses, who then decide to help the poor loser out. As they discuss who to send, some malnourished flatboard called Senko decides that it's her time to shine. Later that night, Kuroda finally takes the train back to his neighborhood and decides to skip dinner, since his paycheck barely covers the rent. However, after getting to his apartment complex, he catches a whiff of some amazing food and thinks his neighbor is cooking late, until he opens his door and sees Senko inside. He immediately apologizes and shuts the door, thinking he got the wrong place. But after checking the front door, he sees that it's his place. As he opens the door again, Senko welcomes him back, but he realizes that talking to her makes him look like one of Epstein's friends. He immediately tosses her out and tries to rest, but she casually phases through the door, which terrifies him. While Kuroda is wondering what on earth is going on, Senko notices that the dark fog is getting thicker, so she offers him dinner. However, Kuroda just wants her to leave, so she resorts to emotional blackmail until he agrees to eat what she made. After stuffing his face, Kuroda finally asks who she is and why she is in his apartment. Senko then introduces herself as an immortal demigod who just wants to make him happy by being his stay-at-home mommy. Surprised, Kuroda asks why she would want to do this for a loser like him, but Senko tells him to stop looking down on himself and mentions owing a debt to his family. After she promises to do anything he wants, Kuroda grows a pair and asks if he can play with her tail because he hasn't been able to stop staring at it. Senko gets shocked by this and says she never expected him to be so bold on the first night. However, she agrees to it, so Kuroda gets behind and starts massaging her tail like a depraved creep, without realizing that Senko's tail is actually her climax spot. When she starts squirming, he tries to stop, but she tells him not to worry until her water fountain erupts. This successfully cures Kuroda of his depression, but he starts feeling disgusted with himself again. Thankfully, Senko has experience with broke wimps, so she comforts him again and makes him sleep on her thighs. The next morning, Kuroda drags himself out of bed for work, looks around the room, and already starts thinking everything from yesterday was just some high-quality dream until he sees Senko floating in the hallway like a casual glitch in real life. She notices the dark bags under his eyes and questions his life choices, asking if going to work like that even makes sense, but he tells her not to worry about it, gets dressed fast, and acts like sleep is an optional side mission. She suggests he should rest more, but he reminds her that rent does not pay itself. He then stubs his toe on the way, and she keeps trying to stop him, even offering to cook something nice, but he ignores all that and rushes out like a man who has already accepted suffering as a lifestyle. After he leaves, she suddenly gets an idea and spreads his blanket nicely so it feels warm later. While he is on the train heading to another long day of getting cooked by his stupid, grumpy boss, she starts unpacking her stuff, which is mostly just cleaning tools, not surprising at all, and then looks around at all the nice things he owns but somehow never uses. That makes her think back to when he first moved in, back when he actually had energy and wanted to invite friends over, before adulthood turned him into a full-time sad and lonely solo player. She decides right there that he is not allowed to stay depressed anymore and immediately starts cleaning everything. Hours and hours pass, and she turns the place from a full disaster into something that looks like rent is actually worth it, then moves on to cooking dinner while he is at work getting his daily verbal beating from his boss, like it is an important part of the job description. After all that, he finally heads home, wondering what she has been doing, and the moment he walks in, she still notices that tired, heavy vibe on him and immediately sets up food, telling him she made his favorite soup and making him sit down like she is forcing happiness on him. After eating, he takes a bath to cleanse his stinky body, relaxes for a bit, then comes out and apologizes for how dirty everything was, and also for basically giving her free labor, like he hired a maid without realizing it. She shuts that down and reminds him she wants to do it. While he is drying off, she notices him struggling with his ear and asks what is going on, so he explains how all the constant yelling at work might have messed with it. He tries to grab something to fix it himself, but she stops him and offers to help, and he immediately refuses, surprisingly. She tries to hype herself up, telling him that people from way back would fight for this kind of treatment, but he is not buying it and just says that he is fine. While he is explaining himself, he notices her ears moving and gets distracted, because priorities just shift like that. She catches on fast and realizes this is her only way in, so she makes a deal. She helps him first, then he gets to mess with her ears. The guy agrees immediately with absolutely no hesitation and lies down with his head on her lap like he just unlocked a hidden feature. At first, he tries to act as if he can handle it, but after a few minutes, he completely gives up and falls asleep, entering a dream where he is taking care care of a smaller version of her, like his brain just decided to run a random side story. He wakes up and asks if they have met before, and she tells him that she has met too many humans to keep track, so maybe not. He reminds her about their deal, and she reluctantly gets ready, telling him to be careful. He says he will go slow, but that lasts about 2 seconds before he gets too into it and starts going all in like he just discovered some illegal levels of soft. She ends up enjoying it way too much, so it turns into a whole situation. After that, he starts apologizing like he just realized he messed up, promising not to go overboard again, and she accepts but tells him to go to bed immediately. That surprises him because he admits that he barely sleeps 4 hours on a normal day, and she almost loses it, explaining that sleep is not optional if he wants to stay alive. She shows him the blanket she prepared earlier, and he jumps in instantly because warmth wins every time. She also decides to sleep, and right there, she starts changing without any concern, so he quickly looks away, trying to behave for once. After she's done with it all, he takes a second to notice how good she looks, then turns off the light. A few minutes later, his brain starts overthinking, worrying about making a literal goddess sleep on the floor, so he wakes her up to ask if she wants the bed instead. She moves in and tells him that he could have just said he wanted to be close instead of acting like a confused virgin. While she tries to sleep again, he keeps looking at her, then suddenly has to look away to stay normal, but she notices and pulls him closer anyway, making sure he stays there for the night, whether he is ready or not. The next morning, she refuses to let him skip breakfast, so he gives up, eats, thanks her, and heads out again like a man slowly getting his life patched together. A couple of days later, Kuroto is at home helping Senko figure out how to use a gamepad. He explains the basics like he is some substitute teacher, then immediately starts destroying her in the game as she owes him money. While this is going on, his neighbor Koenji starts knocking on the door, but he is too locked in, focused on farming easy wins against someone who just learned what a button does. Senko is struggling, and he keeps chasing her in-game and in real life, too, because he suddenly switches to trying to grab her ears like that is the real objective now. Koenji keeps knocking harder, clearly losing patience, but Kuroto is still in his own world, chasing Senko around the apartment. He finally corners her, looking way too proud of himself for catching someone who is not even trying to escape properly, and right at that moment, Koenji loses it and slams the door open. She walks in asking if he needs a hearing aid because at this point, the knocking was loud enough to wake ancestors, but then she sees him mid-chase, and she instantly jumps to the worst conclusion. She shuts the door again, like she just witnessed a crime in progress, and starts calling the police to report what looks like a low-budget Epstein situation. Kuroto panics and runs outside to explain that everything she just saw is normal, and Senko also backs him up, saying that she is fine and adding that she chose this chaos. Koenji pauses the call, still looking confused, trying to process how this situation makes any sense at all, and decides to hold off for now. She then starts wondering why her neighbor is living with someone who looks like a tiny model, because nothing about this adds up in her head. Kuroto notices the questions before even being asked, so he starts thinking of ways to dodge them. But Senko just invites Koenji inside for lunch, and this makes Kuroto even more stressed, because now he expects everything to go wrong. Surprisingly, Koenji accepts the offer easily because free food beats logic every time. Minutes later, Koenji is eating and already looking way too happy. She admits she has been surviving on energy drinks and vibes for 2 days, which explains a lot about her energy and also her decision-making. Kuroto asks if money is the problem, thinking maybe she's broke, but she tells her that she works online while also being a student, so she just does not have time to cook. Senko praises her for being independent, and Koenji then asks the main question about what kind of relationship they have. Kuroto's brain immediately starts buffering because this is where everything can crash, but Senko just says that she's his wife and also acts like his mom because his brain needs supervision. The lie is so random and confident that Koenji just accepts it, mostly because the food has already distracted her brain enough to stop questioning reality. She keeps eating, hyping the food like she found a life upgrade, and Senko thanks her while also offering to share food in the future on one condition, which is that Koenji ignores any weird sounds coming from their apartment. Koenji agrees, but just as everything seems stable, Senko's tail and ears start moving around, and Koenji notices again. Senko is completely unaware, while Kuroto realizes this might be the moment everything falls apart. Before he can panic too much, Koenji suddenly asks if Senko is cosplaying as a character named Yoko, which is the most random but also most helpful guess she could have made. Senko gets confused because she has no idea what cosplay means and starts asking about it, but Kuroto stops her from saying anything that would expose the truth and says that she's a big fan of that character. Koenji immediately switches into fan mode, revealing that she's a longtime supporter of that character, and starts getting excited, asking Senko to do a pose. Senko agrees, even though she has no clue what is going on, just copying the energy, and somehow manages to pull it off well enough to impress Koenji. Koenji then notices how real the ears look and asks how that is even possible, and Senko says that they are real, which somehow does not break the illusion because Koenji just assumes it is dedication to the role. She praises her commitment and promises to keep in touch, then heads back to her apartment, completely satisfied with the explanation. Kuroto thanks every possible god for that 90-minute save and immediately tells Senko they need a better story next time because this one almost failed. He suggests saying she is his niece, trying to make things more normal, normal, but she asks if being his mommy is really that bad. Instead, he tells her that she needs to watch the Yoko series so she can keep up the act properly. They start with a recap, but she gets interested and wants all the details, so he ends up letting her binge the whole thing. While she's busy watching, he tries to rest because his energy is already finished for the day, but she notices they are out of groceries when she starts thinking about dinner. She decides to go shopping, but he stops her because letting her walk around like that is just asking for trouble in public. He comes up with a basic disguise, covering her ears and tail as best as he can, but still decides to follow her. On the way, he stops to play with a dog because priorities are clearly misplaced, and when he sees her being friendly with a stray cat, he tries to join in and almost loses his finger. They finally get to the store, and she is impressed by how big and organized everything is. That makes him realize that she really hasn't kept up with how much things have changed. As she checks out the items, he asks if she can tell what is good, and she says that she's been handling harvests for years, claiming that she's got farming experience that makes this easy. Kuroto starts thinking maybe Senko can handle this on her own until she sees something on a high shelf and floats up to grab it. Someone nearby almost notices, but she covers it up, telling him not to worry. And Kuroto wonders how she can stay so calm while doing things that would expose everything instantly. He then says that he expected her to prefer outdoor markets, thinking that would match her style more, and she remembers how, in the past, people always saw her as a good little girl shopping for her parents, making it hard to get things without attention. That explains why she's fine with this setup now, where people just mind their business. On the way back home, she reassures him that people will always assume she is just a girl in a costume, so there is no need to stress too much, but he still says that he'll go with her when he can, just in case. He also admits that he feels a bit bad for letting her handle things like this, but she reminds him again that she's doing all of it because she wants to, not because she has to. She then agrees that he can come along if he actually enjoys it, and that makes him realize that just going out with her was the best part of his day. A few days later, Kuroto comes back from work looking worse than usual, and Senko notices it instantly, so she decides she's going all in to make him feel better since the next day is Sunday. She promises to take care of him properly until he forgets work even exists, but he ruins that plan immediately by saying he still has to go in, which already sounds like a scam. She asks why, and he just breaks down crying like someone who finally realizes the grind never ends. After calming down a bit, he changes into something comfortable, and she asks if he is seriously planning to work himself into the ground like this, but he says he has no choice, like the job owns his soul now. He then grabs his phone to set up an alarm, preparing for another rough morning, and she suggests something different, saying that she can be his personal alarm so he wakes up to something nice instead of that loud phone sound that ruins lives. He tries to reject it at first, saying it does not really matter since he still has to wake up early anyway, but she looks way too excited about it, so he gives up and agrees. Right after that, he hits the snooze button, and she climbs into bed, placing her tail next to him so he can relax properly. A couple of hours later, when the sun comes up, she remembers her job as the alarm and starts trying to wake him up on time. He asks for a few more minutes, and she agrees at first, but then realizes he is too tired to resist anything right now, so she sees an opportunity. Just when he remembers he actually has work, she starts convincing him to stay a bit longer, making it sound like the best idea ever. He tries to fight it, trying to act responsibly for once in his life, but she drops her tail on his face and tells him that he can hold it as long as he wants, and at that point, his willpower just logs out. He grabs it immediately, and then she joins him in bed, and then both of them go back to sleep. This continues until evening, when he finally wakes up and realizes he completely missed work, which is already a disaster. He starts to question why she didn't wake him up, but then remembers what happened earlier and how he basically got distracted into another dimension, so he switches to apologizing instead, asking her to forget everything. She refuses easily, and even says that he should act like that more often, which does not help at all, and he explains that now he is in even more trouble because he's gonna have extra work the next day. This time, she accepts that he cannot escape the job and offers to be his alarm again, trying to do it properly this time, but he says he's just gonna use his phone instead. Before he can finish setting it up, she takes the phone from him and insists that she'll handle it, promising to wake him up correctly this time, and he agrees, but only if he gets to mess with her tail for the rest of the day. She accepts his proposal, and the deal is set. Not long after that, she starts making dinner using her own flames, and he notices this, asking why she does not just use the stove like a normal person. She says that she prefers her own method because she has full control over it, and after reminding him that she's been around long enough to master it, he decides not to question it further and just appreciates the fact that he's saving money on gas now. About a week later, it starts raining right when he is about to leave for work, and he jokes about her stopping it with her powers. Surprisingly, she actually considers doing it, but he tells her to relax and instead shows her where the air conditioner is in case she wants to enjoy the weather indoors. She looks confused, and he realizes that she still does not know how to use it, so he asks, and she admits that she struggles with modern appliances because she stopped coming to Earth before things like light bulbs became normal. She calls herself outdated, and he leaves for work while she suddenly decides she's going to learn all of it properly. In just a few minutes, she figures out how to turn on the air conditioner and feels proud, thinking everything else will be just as easy, so she moves moves on to the vacuum cleaner. That goes wrong immediately because she puts it on full power and ends up fighting it like it is a boss battle she was not ready for. She decides to focus and reminds herself that she cannot just stick to old habits if she wants to keep up. She tries again with the washing machine, following a guide this time, and manages to get it running properly, but then decides to restart the whole process for no good reason. After that, she figures out the stove and rice cooker too, slowly getting the hang of things, and spends the rest of the day preparing something special. Later on, when she tries to relax in the room, the air conditioner is too strong, making it feel like she walked into winter. So she tries to turn it off but grabs the wrong remote. Instead of turning anything off, she increases the television's volume to the max and almost sends her ears into oblivion. And before she can fix that, she realizes she left other appliances running, so now everything is going off at once like a full system overload. She runs around trying to fix everything, but it just keeps getting worse. All the noise reaches Koenji, who starts getting worried again and considers coming over, thinking something is wrong. Right when she is about to act, the breaker shuts everything down, and she assumes that things are fine again and stays put. A few minutes later, Kuroto gets back home and finds Senko completely stressed out. He checks the breaker, turns things off properly, and explains what went wrong. They then check the fridge to make sure nothing's spoiled, going through everything carefully. And out of nowhere, she starts apologizing, saying she messed things up and feels useless, which is the first time she actually sounds unsure of herself. He just pats her head and tells her that it is fine, saying that he's already satisfied just seeing her when he gets home, which is simple but enough. After that, he goes back to playing with her tail like nothing serious just happened, and then they both check the rice only to realize it never even cooked. Now both of them are stuck trying to figure out what to eat because the one job the rice cooker had somehow failed, and while they're there thinking, Shiro and Sora get tired of watching all this slow progress and decide things are moving too slowly. So Shiro decides that it's time to step in and show her how to handle things properly. After work the next night, Kuroto is rushing to catch the train and spending the whole ride wishing he could just use quick travel to teleport straight home. At some point, he realizes that Senko has become his daily fix, and not in a healthy, balanced way, but more like he's already in too deep. When he finally gets to the apartment, he walks in expecting the usual setup with nice food and all, but instead, he sees Shiro sitting there eating. She introduces herself casually, and Senko apologizes for not being able to get rid of her earlier, but Kuroto says it's fine as long as there's still food to share, because priorities are clear. Shiro keeps eating like she's Fat Dog Mendoza, and Senko serves Kuroto his own plate, but now two tails are moving around in front of him, and that completely distracts him to the point where food stops being the main focus. He can't hide how much he stares, and Shiro catches him, calling him out for staring like a creep and asking why he's trying to look into her soul. He panics, apologizes, and says that he just zoned out, and she just says it is normal. He just accepts that and keeps eating as if nothing happened. After they finish, Shiro compliments Senko's cooking, and Kuroto agrees too. That makes Shiro a bit jealous, but she holds it in and starts hyping herself instead, talking about how popular she is back in the heavens because of her own cooking, trying to stay in the competition. Senko shuts that down quickly, saying she is not the only one who knows how to cook tofu. Kuroto hears that and asks if foxes really have that whole tofu obsession people always talk about. Both of them stare at him like he just said something dumb, and Shiro says that they used to eat meat normally until humans started leaving tofu at shrines, so they just adapted. Senko says that it is the reason she got so good at making it, and Kuroto jokes about wanting something different since tofu is basically his daily routine now, so she tells him that he eats like someone who has no standards anyway. Shiro suddenly wants attention too, trying to jump in, but Senko quickly asks why she is still there since the food is finished, basically telling her to wrap it up. Shiro then admits that she did not come just for food and gets closer to Kuroto, saying that she wants to show him things he has never experienced before, which immediately gets his attention. He expects something wild, but all she does is permit him to rub her head. She starts enjoying it immediately, with her tail moving around all happily, and he actually starts feeling relaxed from something that basic. Then Senko pops up, saying that she wants the same treatment, and now he is rubbing both their heads. Shiro tells Senko to step out of her comfort zone more often if she wants better results, while Kuroto falls into a fantasy that goes way further than what is actually happening. Before it gets too far, Shiro snaps him back by casually saying she likes him, then moves closer like she is about to say something important. Senko immediately tells her to stop, but Shiro ignores that and says that she's the only one who can really take care of him properly. Kuroto tries to defend Senko, talking about how much she has already done for him, but Shiro decides to expose him instead. She uses some kind of spell to bring out his deepest desire, probably expecting something simple, but it backfires when he suddenly becomes fully focused on her tail. He gets up and goes straight for it with zero hesitation. Shiro panics and jumps onto the bed, calling for help, but Senko just watches her deal with the situation she created. Kuroto keeps coming, completely locked in, and she has no choice but to escape by phasing out of the room entirely. She She ends up in Koenji's apartment by accident, and Koenji immediately grabs her, thinking that she just got the pet she always wanted, thanking whatever luck brought her this moment. Shiro looks at her like she cannot believe this is happening, asking if she really cannot tell the difference between what she is and a normal animal. After that, she just apologizes and leaves, while Koenji tries to convince herself that everything's fine. Back in Kuroto's place, he is still in that tail-obsessed mode, so Senko decides to step in and lets him play with hers instead. Meanwhile, Shiro watches from a distance and decides that she's not dealing with that again. After a while, Senko stops him from falling asleep and tells him to go take a bath, and he heads off while she notices that the smell from his body is actually attracting dark energy. She gets an idea from that and goes to change, then offers to wash his back. He tries to avoid any awkward situation by closing the door, but she just goes through it anyway, saying that he has no choice and that she will keep things simple. He still worries about things getting out of control, so he asks for some kind of barrier, but she says that there's actually nothing to worry about. Kuroto tries distracting himself by saying that he'll wash her back too, and she agrees easily. While doing that, he realizes that this is also a chance to look at her tail up close, which is clearly still on his mind, and just keeps going with that thought. After a few minutes, she finishes helping him and asks for her turn, and when he starts, he notices how small she actually is, and that alone kinda resets his expectations completely. After rinsing, they both sit in the bath for a bit, just relaxing and messing around with the water instead of turning it into something weird. During that time, Senko says that she's been worried about how much he's been working lately and tells him not to let it build up too much. He agrees and says he'll try to take better care of himself, but she reminds him that it is her role to take care of him, so he just needs to focus on getting home early. Later, back in the room, Kuroto's drying his hair and wondering if Senko's tail is still wet, but she walks in with it already looking perfect again. He asks how she managed that so fast, and she tells him that tails are important to fox gods. Right after that, he grabs her tail again and asks for a long cuddle session, but also admits that she might be tired of his obsession at this point. She tells him she actually likes it and has no plans to take away the one thing that clearly keeps him stable. The next morning, Shiro pulls up to Koenji's door and almost breaks it off the hinges, trying to open it, ready to offer her services, but the moment she realizes she got the wrong apartment, she closes it quietly and hits the road. Shiro then heads over to Kuroto's place, and Senko asks why she's still trying so hard, warning her that Kuroto might actually try to grab her tail again if she keeps pushing it. Shiro says that he's not going to force anything, and Senko then explains that Kuroto finally has a day off and needs proper rest, but Shiro is not trying to hear that and says she wants to do something fun instead. Kuroto suggests playing games, but Shiro gets confused immediately because she has no idea what a game even is, so Senko tells her not to bother trying to understand it, but Shiro takes that personally and says that she can handle it easily because she is a goddess. A few minutes later, she actually figures it out way faster than expected, which surprises Senko, who starts wondering how she picked it up so quickly. Shiro says that Senko might need a brain update, then notices Kuroto smiling for no reason. She asks what is so funny, and he just starts pulling out more games. While Shiro looks for the next game, Senko asks Kuroto when he even became this deep into gaming. Shiro finds another game and wants to try it, and Senko warns her that this one is actually hard, but Shiro ignores that and says it will be easy, then casually sits on Kuroto, completely unbothered. Kuroto, being the clueless virgin, ignores the obvious situation and just starts rubbing her head, and she begins playing, but gets destroyed almost instantly. He gives her a few tips, nothing serious, and she uses them to slowly improve until she actually wins a round. Senko comes back with snacks and places them down, and Shiro rushes to eat like she has been waiting her whole life for this moment. After she finishes most of it, Senko tells Kuroto to take the last piece so Shiro does not grab it too, but Shiro challenges him to a match to decide who gets it. Senko tells her to calm down and stop being greedy, but Kuroto accepts the challenge anyway, saying that he won't hold back. The match starts, and Shiro suddenly goes all in, pulling off combos like she has been playing for years, and finishes him perfectly, leaving him wondering what in the world just happened. Senko moves closer and comforts him, saying that there was nothing he could have done because Shiro was basically reading his moves, which makes it sound more like cheating with extra steps. While Shiro eats the last snack, Senko tells Kuroto not to worry because she will make something better later, but Shiro immediately starts begging again, saying she can't help it because it's been too long since she had food like this. Even with all that praise, Senko still refuses, but Kuroto asks for another match to settle it again. Shiro agrees easily and says that she reads his moves based on what he is thinking about avoiding, which kinda gives him an idea. He tries to use that information to trick her, thinking he has finally figured something out, but it still does not work, and he loses every single match again until she eventually gets bored and says she will teach him properly another time. She then tries to leave by phasing through the wall, but they stop her because she's just gonna end up in Koenji's place again. After hearing that, she decides to leave the normal way, and Kuroto suggests checking on Koenji just in case she almost died from confusion. The next day, Koenji finally finishes a manga she has been working on for a long time, clearly exhausted, and then hears the doorbell. She opens it and sees Senko standing there with food, which makes her really happy. After thanking her, Senko apologizes for all the noise from their place and promises to keep Shiro from randomly appearing again. Koenji realizes that she wasn't wasn't imagining things before, but she just accepts it and invites Senko inside. Senko agrees, but the moment she steps in, she sees that the apartment is a complete mess, like nothing has been cleaned in ages. She wants to complain, but then hears Koenji's stomach struggling, so she decides to handle things herself and starts cleaning while Koenji eats. While eating, Koenji starts thinking about how different Senko is from a normal person and wonders if there is something more going on. At the same time, Senko speeds up the cleaning using her own methods and finishes everything before Koenji even notices, turning the place from Patrick's house into something normal again. When Koenji finally looks around, she's shocked that it is even the same apartment and thanks Senko properly. Senko says that she actually enjoys doing this kind of work, and Koenji thinks for a moment about how to repay her and then gets an idea, immediately going through her wardrobe and messing it up again just to find a specific outfit. When she pulls it out, Senko gets suspicious and asks why she has something like that ready, perfectly fitting her size. But Koenji avoids the question and says that it's going to make Kuroto happy. The moment she puts it on, Koenji completely loses focus and starts taking pictures, like she just found gold. After taking enough, she gives the outfit to Senko as a thank you gift, which surprises her. Senko asks if she's really okay giving something like that away, and Koenji says that she can't even use it properly anymore, so it was just sitting there anyway. Later that day, Kuroto comes back from work and sees Senko in the outfit, and it completely throws him off to the point where he steps back outside just to reset his brain. Before he can even recover, she phases through the door and asks if he hates the outfit, thinking his reaction means something negative. But he explains that it's actually the opposite, because seeing her like that almost made him lose control. She tells him about her day with Koenji, and he gets stuck on the part where the outfit just happened to fit perfectly, but she keeps talking about how comfortable it feels, so he doesn't even ask. He then says that he prefers her normal clothes, which confuses her because his first reaction did not match that at all. But he explains that seeing her the usual way makes him feel calm, like it is something he is used to now. That surprises her a lot, and she starts feeling something new, while he adds that he still can't believe he gets to come home and mess with her tail every day. They go ahead, teasing each other instead of turning it into something serious, and Shiro watches all of it and finally stops feeling jealous of their rather cultured relationship. A couple of nights later, after dinner, Kuroto decides to put himself to good use and starts clearing the plates. But the moment he tries to stand up, his back gives up on life like a cheap rubber band, so he drops back down and just sits there, dealing with it for a bit. After he explains that work had him moving heavy stuff all day, Senko tells him it is not even about the weight, but more about the fact that he is built like someone who has never exercised in years. Instead of letting him suffer, she offers to fix it with a massage. She gets him into position and starts working, and almost instantly, he feels like his body just left reality for a better place. After a while, he asks her to go a bit harder, but she says that she can't really do that from where she is. He wants the full experience, so he agrees to let her climb on his back, even though it feels embarrassing to accept that kind of setup. She goes along with it and keeps going, and after a few more minutes, the pain and stiffness start disappearing like they were never there. When she finishes, she gets off, and he thanks her, then decides to return the favor. As she gets into position, she admits that she's also been feeling a bit sore lately and appreciates the offer, but he immediately says that he has no idea what he's doing, so she tells him to just start, however, and figure it out as he goes. So he begins with her back and quickly realizes that she's way smaller than he thought. He adjusts his hands so he doesn't accidentally hurt her, and after a bit, he presses the right spot and gets a reaction that lets him know that he's doing something right. He keeps going, getting more confident, then tries moving lower, but the moment he touches the wrong area, she yells and asks him to be careful there. He backs off and continues normally, and after some time, he finishes. She thanks him, and he immediately starts making fun of her for reacting more than he did earlier, which gets her embarrassed, so she decides to get him back by tickling him like she's trying to end him. He struggles through it while she keeps going, and somewhere nearby, Shiro's watching all this and starts wondering what would happen when he finally learns the full truth about everything. Later that night, Kuroto has a dream that feels more like a memory, where Senko shows up with food for him in what looks like a completely different time. When morning shows up, he wakes up thinking about how real it felt, and Senko notices he woke up without an alarm for once and makes it look like a rare achievement. After breakfast, he gets ready for work, and she promises to make his favorite meal later. On his way out, they run into Koenji taking out trash, and Senko helps her like usual. After Kuroto leaves, Koenji says that he always looks happier now and asks if work is still stressing him out. Senko agrees he has improved a lot and adds that she can always make him feel better if needed. Over at work, Kuroto finally finishes a project after putting in a lot of effort, but right on time, Medaka shows up and tells him to redo everything because of some supposed issues. It is obvious he just does not want to handle it himself, but Kuroto still accepts it and starts over, staying late into the night to finish again. By the time he's done and leaves, he realizes that the last train is gone, so he decides he might as well stay at the office then. While heading back, Shiro shows up, and he immediately starts worrying about her being outside looking like that at night. He covers her with his jacket, but she tells him to relax because she already made sure nobody saw her. She then tells him to stop being so easy to push around, so people like Medica stop dumping work on him. She offers to help him get home since Senko will probably not like him staying out all night, but he asks how she plans to do that without a train. She reminds him that she ain't normal and asks for a simple payment if he wants help. He goes to a convenience store and gets her a corn dog, and a little later at a park, she takes a bite and acts like it's the best thing her taste buds have ever had. He gives her a popsicle too, but she bites straight through it and regrets it immediately when she gets a brain freeze. After they talk for a bit, she finally decides to take him home and opens a portal. As they walk through, she explains that it's basically a shortcut and admits that she doesn't like using her powers too much because it takes a toll on her. Then she randomly asks if he knows why Senko is always trying so hard to take care of him, and he just says that she always claims that she enjoys it. She then brings up his ancestor, and he connects it to the dream he had, thinking maybe she's just treating him like a replacement because they look alike. Shiro says that she might just be using him to relive something from the past, and he takes a moment to think about it before saying he is fine with it if it makes her happy. Hearing that, Shiro admits that she only said all that to see how he would react, checking if he would get possessive or weird about it. Since he didn't, she says she will stop using him like a chair whenever she visits. A moment later, she drops him off near his place and tells him that they're already in his area, just in case he somehow gets lost. He heads home, and the moment he walks in, Senko hugs him. He goes straight for her tail like usual, and she asks where his jacket is after noticing that it's missing and picking up a different scent. He tells her what happened and says that Shiro still has it, and she pretends to be upset just to mess with him. Then says that she already ate all the food she made because she thought he wasn't coming back. He gets disappointed immediately, saying that he was actually looking forward to it, but she tells him to relax because there is no way she finished everything. A couple of weeks later, it's Kuroto's first summer break, which excited him since he rarely gets enough time to rest. Senko also gets excited and tries to plan a whole vacation, but Kuroto tells her to relax because the break only lasts a day. This ruins the whole vibe, but then Shiro shows up claiming to have the perfect plan to enjoy the day. Several minutes later, they are all at the beach with Koenji, who then realizes that she has no idea how they even got here. Shiro immediately starts distracting her while Kuroto recalls how they basically kidnapped her minutes ago. After he and Senko agree that they need to be a little more careful, Koenji stops asking questions to take pictures of Shiro. Minutes later, Koenji and Shiro are both in the water, splashing around while Kuroto and Senko sit on a beach mat and watch. After Senko, who loves watching them play, Kuroto asks how they got so close in the first place. Senko then explains that Shiro has been bonding with Koenji through video games for the last few weeks. After getting some watermelon, Senko apologizes for letting Shiro drag them along for this, but Kuroto admits that she actually made his break a lot better. He further admits that it's been fun watching her, so Senko asks if he also wants to swim. However, Kuroto says he prefers being on land. After taking a better look at Senko, he tries to compliment her, only to get smacked by a rogue volleyball. The next moment, Shiro challenges them to a match. Kuroto accepts, thinking this is going to be an easy game, but then both Shiro and Senko start playing like their lives depend on it. Surprised, he asks how they can both play like real athletes, so they remind him that they have been around a while. With that, Koenji serves again, so Kuroto gets serious and gets them the first point. At this, Shiro and Koenji decide to lock in, and as they give it their all, Kuroto admires their teamwork. However, they still get tied up with Senko and Kuroto for the last point. As Koenji makes the serve, Kuroto sets the ball for a perfect smash from Senko, but at the very last moment, her old lady bones pop, causing them to lose the match. Minutes later, at the mat, Kuroto tells Senko not to blame herself, and she accepts before saying that she probably needed a good warm-up. Much later, Koenji makes a sand sculpture for Senko, and after Shiro takes all the credit, she decides to take a nap, but Senko suggests getting some food instead. When Shiro suggests doing a barbecue, Kuroto says it won't be possible, since they obviously didn't bring a grill. The next moment, Koenji pulls a whole grill out of her bag before explaining how she got it a while back because she has always wanted to spend time in nature. Shiro was home at the time, and she promised to take her to a beach soon. They went shopping and got the grill. This makes Kuroto realize that Shiro has been planning this whole thing long ago. However, he still says they can't do it because there's nothing to grill. Shiro then suggests catching their own fish, but Kuroto reminds them that no brought fishing gear. Despite this, Shiro and Koenji take off, planning to catch fish with their hands. While watching them, Kuroto wonders why they still have so much energy. He then helps Senko set up the grill before reminding her that she can just use her blue flames to light it up. After she agrees, he decides to go find other supplies while she looks over their stuff. Several minutes later, Kuroto suddenly spots a restaurant and gets curious, so he walks in, but it's empty. The next moment, he sees a hot mommy who is actually the third goddess, Sora. She keeps her identity secret and asks if he is having fun with the girls. After apologizing for all the noise, Kuroto says they had no idea other people were on the beach. Sora then promises to let it slide before before pointing to a table filled with everything they could possibly need. Before he can respond, she vanished, so Kuroda starts searching everywhere, hoping to see her. Minutes later, he takes all the food back to the grill and tells Senko what just happened. She also gets confused and explains that the island is actually in some sort of limbo between the mortal and spirit realms. This means that no one should be on the beach, so Senko asks if he actually met a person. After recalling how Sora was smiling, Kuroda wonders if she is some spirit monster who just decided to let him go. As Kuroda starts getting worried, Shiro returns with a handful of seaweed. On the other hand, Koenji is embarrassed because she couldn't get anything. However, after seeing all the stuff Kuroda found, they lose their shame and ask how he got all this. Kuroda then tells them what happened before they start grilling. Moments later, Shiro challenges Koenji to see who can grab a shrimp the fastest. After winning, Shiro immediately regrets it because the shrimp almost roasts her hand off. Shortly after this, they continue enjoying the day while Kuroda watches and wishes he could stay forever. Later on, he sets off the fireworks with Senko, and she tells him that it has been so long since she last saw one. Kuroda then admits that he really enjoyed spending the day with them. However, he also admits that going back to work tomorrow will make his depression return. Senko then tells him to enjoy the moment before making fireballs to make the night a memorable one for him. As Shiro and Koenji also enjoy the view, Sora gets tired of stalking them and leaves. The next day, Kuroda wakes up early and prepares for work, hoping to get there on time, but he gets distracted by a show about his favorite cheese dish. Eventually, Senko reminds him to get to work, so he rushes out while she gets curious about the dish he kept drooling over. Later on, she goes over to Koenji's place to ask for guidance so she can make the dish, but Koenji has no idea how it's made because she specializes on Japanese dishes. After Shiro agrees and says Koenji makes the best meals, Senko asks Koenji if she is sure about skipping work just to help her. Koenji responds that she actually doesn't mind since she is already tired of work. Moments later, they are all in the kitchen, and as Senko tries to explain how to us everything, Shiro decides to stuff her face with raw macaroni. To nobody's surprise, the hard piece almost chips her tooth, so she asks why it's so hard. After Koenji explains that she needs to cook it first, Senko decides to get the cooking started with a pot of water. Shiro wants to help, so she used her fox flame to cook it, but then Koenji spots her controlling the flame. Senko notices this and panics, thinking Koenji has figured it out, but the slow-brained dummy convinces herself that Shiro is only faking to be a firebender. Moments later, the water starts to boil, so Koenji tells Senko to dump in the macaroni. As it boils, Koenji focuses on controlling the heat, and Koenji notices again, but her brain fails to realize the obvious. After she also shows Senko how to cut up all the ingredients, they pour them into the pot. However, as they try to season it, Shiro tries to pour in some sugar, but Senko stops her. With that, Koenji tells Senko how to pour in the cheese, but when she places it in the microwave, Senko asks why she isn't using an oven. Koenji then explains how they are both similar, and after several minutes of waiting, it's finally done. Shiro immediately takes the first bite and falls in love with the taste, so they all take turns eating before Koenji commends Senko for making it perfectly on her first try. After she promises that Kuroda will also love it, Senko thanks her for all the help before Shiro tries to take credit for everything as usual. After stuffing their faces, Senko helps Koenji clean up and thanks her for all the help again. She then asks Koenji if she would like to cook together again, and after Koenji says yes, Shiro offers to help, but they are both tired of dealing with her, so they tell her to stick to playing games. Much later, Senko uses everything she learned from Koenji to make the dish for Kuroda, and after taking the first bite, he also falls in love with it. He then asks if she has always known how to make food like this, so she explains how she spent most of the day with Koenji, learning everything she could about making it. Around the same time, Koenji has just finished working on a new project, but then Shiro shows up and tells her to come try something. Koenji gets excited because Shiro is usually too lazy to make anything, but to nobody's surprise, it's just a ramen bowl. However, after Shiro explains how she spent so much time getting the right amount of heat to prepare it, Koenji decides to give her a chance. This ends up being a grave mistake because Shiro dumped all the sugar she could find inside it. A couple of days later, Kuroda returns from work as usual and heads straight to the air conditioner because the sun almost grilled him. As he complains about the heat, Senko asks why he keeps wearing a suit before saying that his long hair might also be part of the reason. After admitting that he needs a trim, Kuroda says he can't get around to it because he never gets enough time to himself. When Senko offers to cut it for him, Kuroda reminds her that this isn't the medieval ages, so she won't give him some horrendous bowl cut from ancient times. Senko then says he's in good hands because she has spent the last few days learning as much as she can about trending hairstyles. After taking a second to think, Kuroda decides to let her cut the hair, but he regrets it the moment he sees her cutting off a huge chunk of his hair. He panics and asks if she needs help, but she tells him not to worry. He accepts once again, so she continues using his hair to practice all the ugly styles she could learn before finally getting the hang of it. As she continues shaping up his hair, Kuroda drifts into memory lane and recalls when his mom would take care of his hair. Minutes later, Senko brings him back to reality so he can take a look at the hair. After taking a look in the mirror, Kuroda thanks her for not ruining his already horrible looks. He then decides to go wash, but Senko wants to do that as well. When they get to the bath, Kuroda tries to talk his way out of it, but Senko insists, and drops her tail on his face to shut him up. The moment she starts washing, Kuroto drifts into one of the usual fantasies. After the wash, Kuroto thanks her again and asks if she can become his personal hairstylist. Senko agrees and says she was also surprised by how good it looks since she has never actually cut hair. This surprises Kuroto, and after Senko explains that she only watched videos to prepare, he wonders how she fixed all those mistakes earlier. Senko then says that she can just reattach the hair, but this makes his heart skip a beat, so he decides to get an actual hairstylist for the next one. Senko's expression changes immediately, so Kuroto says he was only joking and agrees to let her style his hair whenever she wants. After thanking him for letting her try all these new things, Senko promises to do her best. Several weeks after this, Senko wakes up and loses the rest of her brain cells to excitement because she hasn't seen snow in a very long time. As she gets excited to share this experience with Kuroto, she is surprised to see that he is getting ready for work. When she asks how he will get to work in such horrible weather, Kuroto reminds her that he needs to pay the bills. He further explains that the company would have sent a message telling him to stay home, but they only care about their pockets, so he still has to clock in. Senko is still worried, so she tells him that the train stations are probably closed, but he says they are definitely still working before heading out. Surprisingly, Senko grabs him and refuses to let go, so Kuroto tries to drag her along. However, after seeing a memo from his company giving him the day off, he tells Senko to relax because her wish just came through. Minutes later, he is trying to enjoy the view, but Senko keeps yapping. When she drags him outside to play, he tries to go back because it's literally freezing, but she wants to keep playing. She tries everything to change his mind, but this time, Kuroto puts on his big boy pants and refuses. Even when she suggests making snow angels, he still refuses, so she gets upset and starts heading back. Kuroto then notices how good she looks in the snow, so he admires her until she notices the smile on his face. Senko gets confused and thinks he finally wants to play in the snow, but Kuroto apologizes for the mix-up before saying that she looks really good. The sudden glazing fries what's left of Senko's brain, so Kuroto decides to give her space before she tries something unholy. As he starts wondering how people like playing in the snow, she suddenly attacks with snowballs. Before he can complain, Senko tells him to zip it because she still loves playing in the snow despite being the same age as dinosaurs. This makes Kuroto agree to have a little fun in the snow, but as he tries to pay her back for the snowballs, she doubles down until he drops. When he stays on the ground, Senko asks if he snapped something, but Kuroto admits that he actually likes lying in the snow. Excited, Senko dives into the biggest pile of snow she can find and makes Kuroto laugh. After he explains how funny she looked with her tail sticking out, they both spend the rest of the morning chatting and enjoying the snow. Several hours later, Koenji decides to try some natural light, but the insane cold almost freezes her lungs. Then, she sees Senko casually pushing a large boulder of ice, but instead of panicking like any normal person, she acts like it's nothing and heads back inside. While she heads back inside to keep herself warm, Senko heads back inside and decides to get some extra work done. But just as she tries to grab her sandals, something pops, and Kuroto immediately reminds her of when he said she was too old to be jumping in the snow. The moment he takes off his jacket, Senko decides to prepare a warm bath, but then Kuroto realizes that he hasn't played with her tail all day, so he asks for the special treatment he loves. Despite knowing that his intense rubs make her kitty excited, Senko decides to let him do it and spends the following minutes fighting the urge to ride his pogo stick while he enjoys all the fluff. Later on, Senko gets a fever, so she decides to ban tail rubs until she recovers. However, as she tries to enjoy the warmth of the kotatsu, Kuroto mistakes her innocent smile for her wanting more. He starts rubbing, and Senko decides to let it slide, since he is obviously down bad for her. Eventually, she gets up to make dinner and tells him to forget about getting another tail rub anytime soon. The next moment, someone tells Senko not to deprive the loner of the only good thing he has. Kuroto tries to see who the person is and gets a mouthful of Sora's milk jugs. Senko then asks why she suddenly decided to pop in, and Sora says she just wanted to see what she has been up to in person. Just then, Kuroto takes a good look and realizes that she is the same chick from the beach restaurant, so he thanks her for saving their barbecue. After Sora tells him not to worry and explains that she is Senko's boss, Kuroto thinks she must be the most overpowered goddess. However, his expectations drop after seeing that she is still a fun-sized midget, like Senko and Shiro. Thankfully, her large melons make up for the height problem, so Kuroto focuses on them until Sora notices the obvious staring and asks if he wants to rub her melons instead of Senko's tail. Upon hearing this, Senko tries to stop her freaky boss from stealing Kuroto's heart, but then Sora asks if she is ready to be the one rubbing Kuroto's special tail. The virgin goddess immediately gets nervous and backs away, so Sora gets even closer and tells Kuroto to stop holding back because it's obvious that he wants her goods. However, instead of asking for her massive racks, Kuroto asks if he can rub her tails. Senko immediately stops him with her tail and says she is all he needs. Luckily, Sora decides to leave, but she stops and tells Kuroto to stop looking so depressed all the time because he hasn't even faced the hardest challenges yet. Kuroto gets confused by this and asks what she is talking about, but Sora only wishes them luck before leaving. Kuroto then tells Senko that he never expected her boss to be so little, but she tells him not to underestimate Sora. She also gets mad because he wanted to rub Sora's tail, despite having hers whenever he wanted. wants. Kuroto doesn't take this seriously and says she is just jealous until Senko loses it and says she was worried because Sora could have done something crazy. Much later, she serves him dinner while still being upset, but Kuroto still decides to ignore her, thinking she will get over it. Then, he takes the food and realizes that she made something he hates as payback. Several days later, Senko tries to use the vacuum cleaner and manages to get through a cleanup without a near-death experience. With that out of the way, she decides to check her offering so she can get stuff for dinner. However, after seeing a very familiar flower print, she thinks back to a certain day many years ago when Kuroto tried to be an adventurer and got lost to the point where he couldn't find his grandmother again. Naturally, the little wanderer got scared, so Senko helped him find his way back to his grandmother. After meeting her, Kuroto tried to thank Senko, but she had already left, so he took a branch from the same flower to her temple. While recalling how good she felt that day, Senko gets a sudden dark feeling that Kuroto is having a bad day at the office. To fix this, she decides to spend the rest of the day preparing the ultimate night of pampering for the miserable corporate slave. Hours later, Kuroto returns and is surprised to see Senko waiting at the entrance to welcome him back. She greets him and offers to take him to dinner, but he is more focused on her apron because she doesn't usually change outfits. When he asks why, she tells him that it's just for the night before taking Kuroto into the room, which is now a Sake restaurant. The moment Kuroto gets seated, Senko tries serving all the booze she has available, and he gladly drinks them all, completely ignoring his failing liver. He then thanks Senko and says it has been a while since he last had a good drink. Just then, Senko recalls that cherry blossoms will be in season, so she asks Kuroto if he wants to go see them with her. After he agrees, she heads into the kitchen to get him some real food. Kuroto then thinks back to a dark time in his past before telling Senko that he has always loved going to see cherry blossoms. She then serves his food, and after Kuroto takes his sweet time eating it, Senko pours him another glass of wine, as if all the previous drinks mean nothing. Unfortunately, Kuroto's organs have had enough for one night, and as he starts getting drowsy, Senko decides to get him some water. The next moment, Kuroto pulls out his card and asks if he can be of service to her in any way. This makes Senko a little concerned, so she tells him to relax and stop acting out over some shots. When she asks if he is okay, Kuroto tells her what happened earlier at the office. A random customer started making crazy demands for one of their products, and he was expected to complete the changes in an hour. Naturally, he couldn't meet such a crazy deadline, so the customer returned the product, which obviously didn't end well. Like that wasn't enough, Kuroto went to explain what happened to his boss, but the greedy egg-shaped geezer was only worried about the company's loss. As punishment for failing to meet the demand, he made Kuroto work extra hours with no additional pay. Just then, Kuroto apologizes for complaining and says there are definitely people in way worse situations than his. This makes Senko happy, so she commends him for always thinking of others even when he is struggling. Then, she tells him that there is nothing wrong with getting upset about his situation whenever he feels overwhelmed. When she tells him to feel comfortable enough to express himself, Kuroto finally breaks down, and she comforts him as he releases all the pain he has been holding onto. After Kuroto sleeps off, Senko tucks him into bed without realizing that Shiro and Sora have been watching this entire time. Shiro then admits that she misses Senko's cooking, so Sora reminds her that she can go over and eat whenever she wants. However, Shiro explains that Senko's food always tastes better when she makes it in their kitchen. Sora then says she doesn't have to worry because Senko can't stay with man-baby Kuroto forever. The next day, at the office, a Mitaka shows up at Kuroto's department and asks Kuroto if he has heard anything about paid leave, but Kuroto has no idea what he is talking about. Mitaka then says there is a lot more work than usual, but then the boss calls Kuroto into his office to run his fat mouth as usual. Much later, he gets back home and tells Senko that, despite another horrible day on the job, he finally gets 2 whole days to breathe. Senko gets excited by this and starts thinking of ways to spend his break this time. Kuroto then expects her to come up with something actually interesting, but she just wants to go to a local supermarket. She explains that it will be easier to find better tofu, but after seeing the look on his face, she suggests going to see the cherry blossoms instead. The next day, Kuroto suddenly gets a call from his mom, who then says that his dad was admitted into the hospital. After the call, he recalls when Sora said something bad might happen soon, but he convinces himself that it's nothing serious. However, Senko tells him to go see his parents instead of waiting to spend time with her because they can just pick another day to hang out. This warms Kuroto's heart, so he thanks her for being so thoughtful before getting his things ready. Before leaving, he gives Senko his phone because she might need to contact him if something happens. After also explaining how his office phone works, he rushes out to catch the next train heading to his hometown. Much later, he gets to his hometown and takes a bus to the hospital where his dad was admitted. Once there, he meets his mom, who then takes him back to the family house before apologizing for making him so worried. Turns out his dad got a little too drunk and broke something after tripping the other night, so she took him to the hospital. As they both catch up, Senko starts packing up her things and leaves the phone Kuroto gave her. Just then, Koenji shows up to return a food box and thanks Senko for the food before spotting her bags. When she asks what is going on, Senko says she just has to head out for a bit. She then tells Koenji to get the clothes inside because it will rain soon. Koenji gets shocked by this because she watched a weather report earlier that said there would only be clear skies today. However, barely a few minutes after Senko leaves, the entire city gets washed with heavy rain. Around the same time, time, Kuroto has just gotten to his grandmother's grave, and while paying his respects, he spots a plum tree and recalls the day Senko helped him find his grandmother. He also recalls the dream he had about a memory and realizes that Senko has always been protecting him. He then grabs the phone and calls, planning to thank her, but no one answers, which makes Kuroto worried. Much later, he gets a call from Miraka, who then asks when he is coming back to the office because their boss is losing his mind and it's affecting everyone. After promising to come restore peace in a day, Kuroto hangs up and tries to call Senko again, but he still gets no response. This makes him even more worried, and after packing up much later, he tries one more time before thinking that she just forgot how to use it or dumped it somewhere. While thinking of Senko, Kuroto says her name out loud, which makes his mom ask if he has finally found someone's unfortunate daughter to spend time with. To avoid another awkward question, Kuroto heads out for a walk. The next day, he calls Senko one more time and still doesn't get a response, so he decides to head back. He then tells his mom to keep her husband away from booze, and after giving him some tofu, she wishes him a safe trip back. Much later, Kuroto makes it back and gets excited thinking of how Senko will react to seeing him. However, after getting to the apartment, he finds it empty and spots the phone he gave Senko, which makes him realize that he was never even here to take the calls. He then tells himself that she probably went shopping and keeps all the tofu from his mom in the fridge. Then he spots the food box from Koenji, so he heads over to her place to ask about Senko. Koenji asks if he got into a fight with her because she hasn't seen Senko recently. After taking a moment to think, Kuroto says he definitely didn't do anything to piss her off. Koenji agrees and says it is basically impossible to get Senko mad, but then she remembers the stuff Senko packed the other day, so she tells him. She further explains how Senko had a sad look on her face, and this makes Kuroto think that the worst has happened. Koenji also tells him that Shiro hasn't stopped by in days, which is unusual, especially when the last episode of her favorite show is about to be released. Upon hearing this, Kuroto starts panicking because Senko also loves that show. While all this is happening, Senko lays out all the tofu and sake she got from the shrine, just to make sure Shiro and Sora have enough to look after themselves. She then tries to talk to Sora, but the goddess of melons says she already knows that it's because of a certain night with Kuroto. After she pulls up the memory of that night, where Kuroto still had dark energy leaking out of him, she asks Senko why she is still obsessed with him, despite knowing that she can't really help him anymore. The next moment, Shiro shows up and tells her that they need to go back to watch the last episode of the show. By then, Kuroto had just put it on to watch by himself. This time, the show's hero sacrifices herself to save the planet from a great evil. Then, her number one hater gets emotional because he has always loved their violent relationship. This scene makes Kuroto emotional because he might never see her again, and they didn't even get to see the cherry blossoms together again. Minutes later, Kuroto tries to come to terms with being lonely again, but his emotions get the best of him, so he runs all the way to Senko's shrine and begs her to come back, completely ignoring the rain. Meanwhile, Shiro reminds Senko of the day she fell off a cliff and met Kuroto's ancestor. She tells Senko to stop beating herself up and thinking she needs to repay his kindness. After she explains that no amount of care can save Kuroto, Senko thinks back to the day his ancestor took his last breath in front of her. She then decides to keep looking after Kuroto even if she has to stay with him until the very end. Sora disapproves of this, but Senko insists on what she has decided. By then, the rain has finally slowed down, and Kuroto considers giving up, but as he starts heading back, he spots a cherry blossom tree. While thinking about the day they agreed to see it together, he sees Senko walking towards him and drops to his knees. Senko rushes over and starts drying him off before asking why he is out in the cold all alone. Kuroto then says he thought she abandoned him, so she explains that she had to go check on Sora and Shiro. He then asks how she found him, but she was actually going to check on the cherry blossoms since they planned to see them together. To make him feel better, she decides to go watch it together. Hours later, Kuroto gets worried and asks if it's okay for him to be alone with her at night, but Senko says it won't be a problem to stop anyone from seeing them. Then she serves him a tasty cup of sake before telling him to eat up until there is no room left for food. A couple of minutes later, Kuroto realizes that the booze is affecting her, which makes him curious since she always seemed like she could handle her drinks. Senko then explains that she can control how fast her body processes it, so the tipsy feeling is intentional. To stop him from asking dumb questions, she places his head on her thighs. While watching the cherry blossoms, Kuroto spots Senko's hairpin, which reminds him of the past, so he gets up to thank her for always looking after him. After stopping him, Senko says she will only accept this if he agrees to let her pamper him forever. She then makes him lie on her thighs again, but the sake finally gets to her, and Kuroto soon joins her in Slumberland. Much later, Shiro shows up with Koenji to share the rest of the food before Koenji reveals that she saved the last episode so they can all watch it together. The next day, Kuroto is back to life as a corporate slave, but in a shocking turn of events, his boss smiles at him for the first time just because Kuroto decided to let him taste Senko's cooking. While he continues working, Senko cleans up the place, eagerly waiting for him to get back. Hours later, he finally comes back and wastes no time in playing with Senko's tail. What terrible fate is in store for Kuroto, and will Senko be able to save him from it? Comment Fox Mommy to find out, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this.